Well, the Albanese government has announced mandatory COVID testing for Chinese travellers entering Australia. While there's no evidence of new virus strains in China, Health Minister Mark Butler says the decision was made in an abundance of caution. The measure comes into effect from Thursday. To discuss this further, joining me live is Tourism and Transport Forum CEO Margy Osmond. Margy, thanks for your time today. What sort of impact do you think these measures will have on Australian tourism?
Well, look, it's quite difficult to tell at this point in time. Obviously, the Chinese represented the largest part of our tourism market before COVID, and we were very much hoping that 2023 was the year we were going to see the Chinese coming back to us because they're great visitors, they spend a lot, they love Australia. So it's difficult to tell at this point in time. But we're still hoping to see a fairly significant increase in Chinese visitors in the first part of this year, obviously meeting the new testing requirements.
Do you think these sort of measures are likely to discourage people, the Chinese, to come to Australia?
Well, look, I would hope not, but it may very well. I think the issue for us is that the tourism industry has backed and supported the government of the day's approach to health advice all through the pandemic, and we will continue to do that. But we very much hope that governments at all levels are going to be flexible and approach this as a temporary measure until we've got a clearer idea of what's going on.
And how has Australia's tourism sector fared over the festive period in general so far?
Well, look, domestic tourism's been incredibly strong and in many instances better, in fact, than it was before COVID. We have been seeing some increase in international visitation, but, this is the most competitive tourism market the world has ever seen. And so people's options and the places they might go and how competitive those destinations are is sort of virtually on steroids at this point in time. So we're still probably, 30 to 40% down on what we might otherwise have been for international visitors, but we have high hopes of 2023.
Yeah, speaking of the remainder of the year, do you think that more people will be travelling domestically throughout 2023?
I don't think there's any doubt we're going to see more domestic travel. People have certainly, really discovered their own country during the period of the pandemic, and they're more inclined to want to take a holiday here in Australia and see more of Australia. The other factors there, of course, are things like aviation capacity and the price of international tickets. All of those things will be mitigating in terms of people holidaying here at home. But I suppose the big issue for us is that we know that something like 58% of Australians are now telling us that cost of living issues are beginning to impact on their holiday plans. So we really are going to need those international visitors back to fill whatever the gaps may be created by these worries around cost of living for domestic Australians.
And do you think we will see that influx of international travellers coming in over the next year or so?
Look, I do think over the next year we're going to see numbers improve pretty significantly. Obviously, though, a fair proportion of any projections in this space is built around the Chinese coming back to us in the first half of 2023, if not in the numbers we saw before the pandemic, at least in reasonably significant ones. So while obviously the industry will support government when it's making decisions around the health call on this, we are really hoping that things will resolve themselves in the positive so that we can welcome back those Chinese travellers during the course of this year.
Absolutely. Margy Osmond, thank you so much for your time today.